Christian world and Muslim world, so many things together that can meet here in the name of Mary.
East and West, Europe and Asia, Christian world and Muslim world. So many things come together here in the name of Mary. As years passed after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, accounts of his life altered due to oral tradition and scriptural changes, leading to conflicting beliefs about Mary's death. Some assert she died naturally, perhaps peacefully in her sleep before ascending to heaven.
Her body could not suffer the corruption of the tomb. Her divine Son has taken her up into paradise with him.
Her immaculate body unable to suffer corruption. Her divine Son took her into paradise.
She was there for the other apostles and for the holy men and women who were fleeing persecution.
Others believe she didn't die at all, merely ascended, while some are convinced she died in places like India, not Jerusalem. She was there for the apostles and holy men and women fleeing persecution. Each Christian group upheld their beliefs until recently when scientists discovered her actual resting place, a tomb sealed for years. This finding has caused Christians to question their beliefs, seeking truth. Join us as we uncover the true story of the Virgin Mary's death and what was found in her tomb, located in the Kidron Valley near famous sites like the Garden of Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations. Many Eastern Christians claim this tomb belongs to Mary, the mother of Jesus. After being sealed for millennia, the world awaited the discovery inside. When the tomb was finally opened, it was empty. Books that claimed Mary didn't ascend were proven wrong, while Christian beliefs that Mary ascended bodily into heaven seem to explain the tomb's emptiness.
Well, I think that's it, isn't it? That's not the entrance to the tomb. We're in the tomb.
These beliefs are called the Assumption, but there are intriguing differences between Catholic and Eastern Christian views on Mary's life and death, making it a fascinating topic. We stand outside the Church of the Silar of St. Mary in Jerusalem, where Mary's Assumption is traditionally believed to have taken place. Catholics believe Mary never died, while Eastern Christians think she died, was buried, and then resurrected on the third day like Jesus, before ascending to heaven. The Assumption of Mary is one of 4 key beliefs about her, officially declared by Pope Pius XII on November 1, 1950, in a document called Munificentissimus Deus.
We're standing outside the Church of the Sepulchre of St. Mary here in Jerusalem, the place where it was traditionally believed that Mary's Assumption took place.
This teaching connects to the belief in the Immaculate Conception, asserting Mary was born without sin. Both beliefs hinge on Mary's role as the mother of Jesus, the Son of God. The Assumption doesn't specify if Mary died, only that she was taken to heaven. The Eastern Orthodox Church has a similar belief called the Dormition, meaning falling asleep. This belief, though not official doctrine, is vital to their tradition. Pope Pius XI's letter expressed hope that belief in Mary's Assumption would strengthen faith in the resurrection, emphasizing that like Mary's body, our bodies too will be resurrected and taken to heaven. Different stories exist about where Mary's Assumption occurred, which we'll explore later. Around the 7th century, a new story about Mary's Assumption emerged, claiming that the Apostle Thomas wasn't present at her death. When he arrived, they reopened her tomb to find it empty except for her clothes. Some versions say Mary dropped her belt from heaven as proof of her Assumption, depicted in many paintings. The belief in Mary's Assumption spread early, with Emperor Maurice making it an official holiday in the Eastern Roman Empire around 600. Some scholars trace these stories to ancient Christian texts outside today's Bible, suggesting Jewish Christians in Jerusalem passed down these traditions orally. They argue these stories, shared during or shortly after the Apostolic era, are based on real events. Scholar Shoemaker, however, notes these traditions come from diverse sources and evolved over time. Even proponents of oral traditions acknowledge the Assumption belief developed significantly over time. The story of Mary's Assumption first appeared in the Liber Ruhr Mariae, written in the 2nd or 3rd century. This book, considered unreliable, contains beliefs different from mainstream Christianity. Early stories about Mary's Assumption are inconsistent. Stephen J. Shoemaker argues there's no evidence for belief in Mary's Assumption before the 5th century, with the exception of Epiphanius of Salamis in the 4th century, who found no reliable information about Mary's end. Early Christians didn't write about Mary's death, leading to differing beliefs, such as peaceful death, martyrdom, or Assumption without death. Epiphanius compared Mary to Elijah, assumed into heaven without dying. This idea persisted in later unreliable writings like De Habitu S. Virginis and De Transitu Virginis from the 5th century, spreading the Assumption belief, which became widely accepted by the 8th century. John of Damascus wrote that Mary died in the apostles' presence, but her tomb was found empty, leading to belief in her bodily Assumption. The Dormition celebration in the Eastern Church was introduced to the Western Church in the 7th century, evolving into the Assumption Feast. By the 9th century, Pope Leo IV elevated the Assumption's importance, adding religious ceremonies. Later, Pope Nicholas I equated the Assumption's significance with Christmas and Easter. In the 12th century, German nun Elizabeth of Schonau's visions influenced Western belief in the Assumption. Pope Benedict XIV later declared belief in the Assumption as respectful to God. On May 1, 1950, a man named Jules Burr saw the Virgin Mary and delivered a message about the Assumption to Pope Pius XII, who, seeking confirmation, declared it a dogma on November 1, 1950, reinforcing its absolute truth in the Catholic Church. However, not all Catholics agree on Mary's Assumption. Some believe she died and was resurrected before her Assumption, known as the Mortalist interpretation, while others believe she was assumed without dying, called the Immortalist interpretation. Both views are accepted in the Catholic Church. Eastern Catholics celebrate the Dormition, honoring Mary's life and death, with a 14-day fast preceding the feast. Protestant views on the Assumption vary, with some denominations closer to Catholicism in belief, while most do not accept it. Anglicans have a range of beliefs, some accepting, some rejecting, and some indifferent to the Assumption. In recent years, Anglo-Catholic groups revived its celebration. Different Anglican churches observe a feast on August 15th with varying names and focuses. The Church of England honors the Blessed Virgin Mary without specifying the Assumption, while the Scottish Episcopal Church calls it Mary the Virgin. The Episcopal Church in the U.S. celebrates Saint Mary the Virgin, Mother of our Lord Jesus Christ, while others mark it as the falling asleep of the Blessed Virgin Mary, referring to the Dormition. For centuries, Jesus Christ's tomb in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem was covered in marble. In October 2016, scientists finally examined it during a restoration project, uncovering layers of material beneath. They studied the original rock where Jesus' body was believed to have been placed, adding to Christian belief. Jesus was killed by the Romans and laid on a carved shelf in a cave in AD 30 or 33.
Mary was assumed into heaven at the end of her earthly life. She was taken up body and soul into heaven.
Christians believe he resurrected, and when women visited his body days later, it was gone. The shelf is now inside the Edicule, a small house rebuilt after an 1808 fire. Since 2017, Greek scientists, led by Professor Antonia Moropoula, have restored the Edicule and tomb, using advanced tools to study it. Visitors are awed by this sacred place, traditionally dimly lit but now brightly illuminated during the restoration. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a vital Christian site managed by 6 groups, houses this tomb. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Tomb of Mary, built around the same time, are visited by many yearly. Mary's tomb building, destroyed and rebuilt multiple times, was last reconstructed by Franciscan friars in the 14th century. Greek Orthodox oversee the building, sharing responsibilities with other Christian groups. Visitors descend a long staircase to reach Mary's tomb, passing 2 chapels dedicated to Joseph and Mary's parents. Before scientists found Mary's resting place, several locations claimed to be her burial site. Different traditions offered various claims. Turkmenistan Christians believe Mary's tomb is in Mari, linked to Nestorian tradition. Christians in northern Iraq believe her tomb is near Erbil, linked to a Mosul mosque. The Ahmadiyya movement claims her tomb is in Muri, Pakistan, now called Mimari de Astan. These traditions tell of Mary's travels after Jesus' death, such as the 7th century story of Mary going to India with Apostle Thomas, who saw her body rise to heaven, leaving her belt behind. Another legend says Mary died in Mari, Turkmenistan. Another story tells of Mary's later life in Ephesus with St. John, believed to have taken care of her after Jesus' death. Historical evidence supports this, with St. John's tomb in Ephesus and the first church dedicated to Mary built there. The Ecumenical Council of 431 in Ephesus defined Mary's divine motherhood, mentioning St. John and Mary. Local traditions in Ephesus and modern-day pilgrimages honor her. In the 19th century, German nun Anna Katharina Emmerich's visions described Mary's house in Ephesus, later confirmed by scientists who found a house matching her descriptions. The site, dating to the 1st and 4th centuries, was restored in 1951. Pope Paul VI visited in 1967, affirming the legend. Annually, Christians and Muslims celebrate Mary's Assumption there on August 15th. Christian theologians and historians have long debated the different stories and legends surrounding the Virgin Mary's Assumption. The various accounts and beliefs reflect the rich tapestry of Christian tradition and the ways in which these stories have evolved over centuries. Ephesus tradition. According to the Ephesus tradition, Mary spent her final years in the city of Ephesus, now in modern-day Turkey, under the care of the Apostle John. This belief is supported by the presence of a house in Ephesus, known as the House of the Virgin Mary, which is considered by some to be the place where she lived and died. The Ecumenical Council of Ephesus in 431 AD, which affirmed Mary's title as Theotokos, Mother of God, further strengthens this tradition. Jerusalem tradition. Another strong tradition places Mary's Assumption in Jerusalem. This belief is upheld by the Eastern Orthodox Church and is based on the presence of the tomb of the Virgin Mary in the Kidron Valley, near the Garden of Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations. According to this tradition, Mary died a natural death, and her body was taken up to heaven from this location. Catholic interpretation. In Catholic theology, the Assumption of Mary is a dogma that states Mary was taken up body and soul into heaven. This belief was officially declared by Pope Pius XII on November 1, 1950, in the Apostolic Constitution Munificentissimus Deus. The Catholic Church allows for two interpretations. One where Mary died and was then assumed into heaven, and another where she was assumed into heaven without dying. Eastern Orthodox interpretation. The Eastern Orthodox Church celebrates the Dormition of the Theotokos, which means the falling asleep of Mary. According to this belief, Mary died a natural death, and her soul was taken up by Christ. Her body was resurrected on the third day and taken up to heaven. This tradition emphasizes Mary's death as a natural and peaceful transition, mirroring the resurrection of her son, Jesus. Protestant views. Protestant beliefs about Mary's Assumption vary widely. While some Anglican and Lutheran traditions accept the Assumption as part of their teachings, most Protestant denominations do not hold it as a doctrine. The emphasis in Protestant theology is typically on the scriptural basis of beliefs, and since the Assumption is not explicitly mentioned in the New Testament, it is often not a central tenet. Scholars have analyzed the various traditions and oral accounts surrounding Mary's Assumption. Some argue that these stories are based on ancient Christian texts and oral traditions passed down through generations. Others, like Stephen J. Shoemaker, point out that the stories of Mary's Assumption evolved over time and were influenced by different sources, leading to the diverse beliefs we see today. The Assumption of Mary remains a significant and deeply revered belief in many Christian traditions. Whether celebrated as the Assumption in the Catholic Church, the Dormition in the Eastern Orthodox Church, or recognized in various ways by Protestant groups, the stories of Mary's final days continue to inspire and evoke devotion among believers. The ongoing discoveries and scholarly research add layers of understanding to this ancient and cherished tradition, highlighting the enduring legacy of the Mother of Jesus in Christian faith.